According to sources, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi may announce a phased exit from the country's lockdown to kickstart the world's fifth largest economy. Last month's unprecedented move impacted over 1 billion people and left tens of thousands of migrant workers jobless and without a place to stay. Amidst the grim reality of the world economic outlook, economists expect a quick recovery for India. Small growth this year against a contraction for the rest of the world. For more on this, I'm now being joined by the foreign correspondent for India Today, Loveena Tandon. Loveena Tandon, welcome to the show. According to some sources, the Prime Minister may announce an end, or at least a phasing to an end of the lockdown this weekend. Do you think that's too soon?
It is a big question that everybody is facing around the globe, because the only exit strategy really we have from still social distancing, apart from social distancing and lockdown, is really a vaccine and a drug. And in the absence of which, it has to be some kind of phased lockdown, which is what India is trying to do, considering a lot of its states do not have as much of the pandemic. And in India, it's a unique situation, Juliana, because it is a question of life versus livelihood as well. There are so many people who might die of hunger, if not of the virus. So it's something that has to be really looked at very. So I cannot say that it is very soon. Some measures have to be put out, especially when not all the states are that badly affected. So it's a very tricky decision as long as the healthcare is ready to really take the spike if it happens, which is what they are saying. The lockdown will be managed out, which is an essential for lots and millions of daily wage workers.
It's interesting, Loveena, that you mentioned these daily wage workers. We've got a similar issue happening in Africa. You can't necessarily follow what the West are doing when you're dealing with people with a completely different set of circumstances. But I want to ask you about those daily wages and those who work within the gig economy, because, of course, we all saw those pictures of a couple of weeks ago with your bus stations and train stations literally flooded with people who overnight had lost their jobs. Were there any stimulus packages or financial handouts given to them from the government?
Yes, they were given, but are they enough or not is the big question. And they clearly are not enough because, as you say, India and Africa come with their unique situation. It is this gig pay-as-you-go freelance economy that makes it very vibrant, young, and kicking above their weight as far as all the others are concerned. India is fifth in number as far as gig economy goes, and it keeps it going, and that will keep on going as long as the government can provide some stimulus. Now, as far as stimulus as of now, yes, they have provided for those people who have something called Aadhaar card, and they will get X amount of money in their bank account and 5 kgs of rice and all 5 rice and wheat and 1 kg of pulse. So all that is happening, but is that enough? And the question is that India is so huge. And there are so many people who are in this situation that they have to cater out to, that it is a very, very cumbersome and uphill task. So it has happened, but not completely. People are still suffering with hunger, and they rather have the lockdown gone than die of hunger.
Absolutely, there's suffering, not just in the global south, in the global north too, Loveena. Lastly, I've got to ask you about the latest figures. There are so many. There's stuff that's come from the IMF, from Moody's, about the economic downturn for India. Surprisingly, of course, yes, they do expect it to be a slower growth this year than it has been in previous years, but still expanding, unlike most of the rest of the world. How do you think people will see this? Will people see this as a relative success for Modi, or will there be strong opposition wondering how he's handled the entire situation?
Modi is Marmite, and they had strong opinion on either side, whichever way you look at it. But 1.9% growth is what has been predicted. But we have to remember that the growth had gone down to 4.7% even before India entered the pandemic. And for them to really keep this going, they have to incentivize it further. Now, is it a success or not? It is all comparison. The world will possibly go into global recession, and the real figures we'll get to see when we are in it and how we deal with it. So it depends on who's looking at the glass, and it depends on whether they look at it as half full or half empty. So just that the growth is happening as compared to many other economies is definitely a plus point, but he was being pulled up for the economy even before they went into the pandemic. So the government has a very tricky road and a tricky path to trek on.
Well, with 1 billion people, it certainly is tricky. Loveena, thank you so much for joining us on Channel's Business Global. Thank you.